Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Market Mindset and today's take. There is a scramble unfolding across the globe, and it's not just for oil. That used to be the big push in the past, but for metals, metals that power our grids, data centers, and defense systems. Copper, uranium, silver, all of these were just kind of thought as commodities and precious metals to some extent, but not anymore. These are actual national security assets across the globe. Every country is looking at these as the importance that they have. And once considered kind of the boring, world of just a commodity or iron or whether it's uranium, is now the world is paying attention. And if you're not paying attention to where capital is moving, you're going to miss out on the next decade of wealth creation because it's happening. So welcome to the show. That's kind of the hook that we're talking about today. We'd like to keep things on the broad screen of things regarding headlines, macro topics, news flow regarding energy and mining. And one of the big ones that we want to kind of touch base on again, because it's very interesting, and we've talked about it before, is Eric Prince in the Congo. Congo, certainly a hotbed of political discussion, has been for a long time, mostly due to artisanal or illegal mining. The really sad state that their country's in, the poverty, it's a very challenging place, but absolutely rich wealth of metals and materials, but a difficult place to work for those obvious reasons. If you're in a challenging political environment that's violent with a lot of turmoil, it's hard to invest in that. It's hard to back any group in there. It's hard to believe that if you spend all the money on infrastructure in there, that it'll be maintained, that it'll stay, or that you'll even get to do any work in there, any mining, any extraction at all. Never mind that you'd have the ideologues and activists on the other side screaming colonialism or whatnot, or whatever their kind of political Marxist pitch of the day is. Regarding that as well, they never seem to complain whenever China does it, but they do seem to complain if the West ever goes into any country to invest into. So Eric Prince is quite a controversial figure himself. A little background: if you're unaware, Blackwater, that was a mercantile or mercenary group that was active in the Middle East. Lots of controversy around it, but a very interesting fellow. He's very educated. He's an ex-Navy SEAL. He has worked across the globe. He built up Blackwater to being a massive company, and there is a lot of controversy, which we're not going to get into. And it's quite interesting. If you watch things like the Sean Ryan show, which I really enjoy, he's had Eric Prince on a number of times, and hearing what happened as far as administrations and in regards to Blackwater, his version of the story compared to the mainstream progressive narrative is very different. Somewhere in between those two, the truth probably lies, but he is a fascinating person. And a lot of his kind of foundational principles I agree with. It doesn't mean I agree with everything he does, but very, very interesting person. So he is in there, and the Congo, as you know, has asked the U.S. for help. Now, specifically regarding Rwanda, now that narrative you can think all you want as well. We try to leave these political things, as far as possible, but it is interesting because if you did have support from the people of the Congo and the government that they wanted to have a Western or U.S. presence that was they could feel protected in their investment, that if they're investing in mining and investing in the country, that there was going to be some profit. That's a huge thing because they are the main resource for cobalt. And although a lot of solutions are moving away from cobalt, it's still necessary. It's still needed. We could talk about all those offshoots of conversations for a long time, but we just want to throw it out there because if you're bored one day and you want to look up someone interesting, check out Eric Prince, look up Blackwater, look out what they're doing in the Congo. But that's moving along very well. And that is also interesting in the larger geopolitical theme of, over the last decade, China moving into Africa. They had spent a lot of money and some success, some not so much. depending on how they get along with each different country within Africa. They've met with some strong resistance, let's say, in many aspects, and some success. But right now, as far as China's strategic buying spree in mining, Chinese mining firms closed 10 deals alone, over 100 million in 2024. That's the highest since 2013. That's a big deal. That is completely driven by metals like lithium, cobalt, and copper for EVs, batteries, and semiconductors. And despite Western restrictions, companies like Zijin Mining, Bayin, Non-Ferrous Group, they've continued their global expansion at pretty strong rates. And listen, once again, taking all the political ideologies out of it, if you've got places that are willing to invest in the solutions for the future, so and they are, I know they're a major polluter, but our stance is that they are stockpiling, they are producing a lot of these critical metals, but they're also building out the solutions. Like, they do some incredible feats of engineering, which we've talked about before. They're also, whether it's solar, whether it's incorporating some wind, geothermal, nuclear at a massive rate, they're adopting all of these renewable strategies very quickly, and they're getting projects done very quickly. Now, yes, they're also opening up a ton of coal plants, but they look at it as being, listen, we're in a period of transition. We need power. We need energy. And if we want to jumpstart and to get our country up to the energy demands that we would like to see in 5, 10, 15 years of being mostly renewable, that's going to take a lot. And listen, I think it's the right approach. I can't fault them for that. It's what I would do, certainly. And we're seeing that maybe that shift of recognition in the overall West. Once again, there's a lot of ideology we have to fight in regards to that. A lot of misinformation and poor education around it as well. But they have been moving at lightning speed still. And there's been a lot of light on them as well in regards to critical metals. It gets covered in The Economist, you name it. It's kind of constant theme discussion over the last few years. We've been covering it for ages, but it is important to see that even with the light being shone in them, they're still investing. And it's important to see. And my kind of response to anyone saying Canada saying we can't take some money from China in certain deals because of restrictions from the government. But I mean, we've got a pension fund that's massive that doesn't invest in Canada. Why, if we're saying no to China, you can't invest in us? Why doesn't our government just flex a bit and say, well, you know what? We're going to strongly encourage our pension fund, which is federally state owned, to encourage in our country, encourage investment in our country. Kind of sounds like a no-brainer to me, but hey, I'm not the prime minister. I'm probably lucky for it. In any event, unprecedented deal volume from China, and whether it's state-backed firms like CMOC, MMG, and Zijin, they have a ton of infrastructure financing available to them, and they are able to operate in high risk jurisdictions, essentially either restricted from Western firms, or they're going to get so much political fallout and so much media fallout that it becomes challenging. So whether you're looking at deals in Tibet with copper, in Kazakhstan for gold, Ivory Coast for gold, or the DRC and lithium, China has been doing an incredible job across Africa and Central Asia, unlocking resources for quite some time. Middle East, also lots of mega deals. Saudi Arabia recently attracted around 32 billion in mining investments for iron phosphate, aluminum, copper, and representing nearly 1/3 of its 100 billion target by 2030. That's a big number that they're putting into mining. This is a obviously massive energy powerhouse that is recognizing, hey, we don't have uranium, so nuclear is not our angle, but maybe we need to get into this battery space. Maybe we need to control the means of production. God, I hate using that term, but it's necessary for them to feel like they have a say, have power in transitioning as well. And once again, we're all for energy of all types as a tool regarding where you are. We don't look at extraction as being that's bad, this is good. There are dirtier ones, of course, but once again, it's in the greater narrative and greater macro outlook as to what are you trying to achieve. And sometimes you got to get a little dirty to get clean. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But I think you get the idea. What I'm saying is sometimes in order to really launch forward, and whether you're looking at AI, we know the energy that takes and the investment that it takes. That takes a ton of energy. If we really need to make sure that we keep the lights on, that the refrigerators are on, that our food is being kept cold, that we're able to power the current infrastructure we have, but also feed the massive demand for AI, which is going to lead to massive technological breakthroughs in everything, whether it's bioscience and pharmaceutical drugs, you name it, in every aspect of our life. We need to consider that and go, listen, we might have to just really go for it right now, especially to win this AI race. That's my take overall. So the new House, bills before the U.S. In streamlining mining permitting is a very big step. We see the Department of Energy increasing support for a helium reserve or a natural gas storage, specifically in AI data center zones. We just put out a very interesting article that we saw a LinkedIn post regarding a massive data storage plant in Roswell and in New Mexico. And we've got a very interesting article regarding DME and its announcement of becoming the operator, not building the plant, but the operator for the Roswell plant that could provide a lot of money for DME. We also have a card coming out. Our drill sheet will come out where we stand on DME. That was one of our favorites for the longest time. We've held back our reservations as to there's a lot of catalysts that are moving forward with it. And we want to see where are they before we got too excited about them again. And we're getting the models telling us we should get a bit more excited. So more on that soon. But we're working on some research right now regarding that. But things are moving, and there's a lot of catalysts that are near term that are very interesting. And otherwise, beyond that, when you need to look at the amount of money they're spending on military as well, and we see this shift from a lot of the older firms that you see. I mean, they're getting a lot of money, whether it's General Dynamics, Raytheon, but one of the biggest IPOs we're waiting for that's outside of our scope. We talk about in our subscriber section is a lot of this AI and autonomous drones and vehicles out there. There are companies doing incredible things, and I think the U.S. is spending like $1 trillion to modernize and update their military. And that money is going to be spent. And we see a lot of these companies, whether it's like your likes of, Anduril, which is coming on board soon, and other ones that will do very well. So when we were looking at the other thing I want to touch on was an article put out today in regards to the U.S. and the EPA. We've got an article we put out there for everyone on Substack to give a peruse through on our take of Lee Zeldin and them, shifting the EPA's stance on climate priorities, I guess you'd say, or whatnot. And it's important to look at this idea of maybe they've gone too far, maybe they haven't. I mean, this is also a hotbed discussion, but I wanted to touch on this because the idea of consensus science, we see this all the time. This is what we're told we need to pay attention on. Consensus science is an oxymoron. That isn't science. You either have evidence of something. Like there's no consensus on gravity. There's no consensus on engineering, on building a bridge. Like I don't have an opinion. I don't get to have one. Like I don't get to say, I don't think we need that kind of support beam. I really feel like the good argument can be made. It has to be that there's evidence and who has the best argument. And that hasn't been the case. Now, once again, of course, climate change is happening. But saying a vague statement like climate change, it's kind of like saying your life changes. Yeah, there's change. Everything changes. And do we have an impact on it? Of course we do. It's just a matter of how much. And the issue becomes, what's the overall narrative? And the overall narrative is largely politically biased. And that is unfortunate. So what we kind of streamlined in is to look at what is the actual evidence, because often, I mean, whether it be like, if you look back at the 40s where the consensus was smoking was healthy, that's what consensus science can bring you. And people say, oh, well, that's because they just didn't know. Well, yeah. And that's what we need to remind people, is that science, whether you look back at the lockdowns, which most people recognized wasn't a lot of actual science happening there. The evidence was obvious and speaking for itself and published that people ignored. And we're seeing, constant daily, if you're looking, it's not in the mainstream, but if you're looking, constant revelations being found out about that. You have to be careful about mainstream news headlines, or even anyone specifically biased or having an opinion. My bias. I'm for mining. I'm for energy. You know what angle I'm coming from. But we also want people to go look and find for themselves, because you shouldn't just take my word for it. We always put in links to where we're reporting from or where we're finding information, whether it's Goldman Sachs, whether it's from the World Energy Council, whatever it happens to be. We are always showing this is where we're getting it from. It isn't just, hey, I've got an idea. And when you're mentioning a study, well, then you have to actually point to the specifics. The problem is most people don't actually read studies. Even doctors, they don't tend to read them. They're too busy doing their job, as they should be. You're either a researcher or you're applying the skills. You don't have a ton of time to do both, but you kind of should. And unfortunately, nowadays with social media, everyone feels like, because they see a headline and it's from a trusted source, that somehow is true. And that's because we don't have enough time to be able to cover all of the nuances and topics, to have an opinion, even though we feel we should. And unfortunately, people tend to block themselves into boom, right and left, or political ideologies, and then adopt the entire package. And what we're trying to do is to say, no, you got to shatter that. What we're trying to encourage people to do is to think critically and think reasonably, and to look at the evidence. If 9 out of 10 scientists say this is true, but that one scientist has a breakthrough and has evidence to support an idea, that could be the answer. And that needs to be addressed just as much as the other 9, because it's all about, what did the evidence show? I don't care about what you feel, or, oh, I don't feel comfortable about that solution. It might cause unrest, or it might make people feel sad or uncomfortable. I don't care. Your politics should not come into play. If there's evidence supporting something, you have to look at it. And unfortunately, nowadays, everything, right and left, either side, I'm not picking on a side, jumps on board to any kind of solution and has to put their coding on it. And it's unfortunate. And that's always how it has been and always will be. But we're trying to encourage people to go, let's look past that first kind of onion shell, look beneath, and start asking questions. Because one of the obvious ones, whether it's dealing with climate, was, if you go into ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT, how do, say, climate activists reconcile, or the politicians that really push a narrative, how do they reconcile the 1 million+ scientists that work in extractive services? All the engineers, all the geoscientists, nuclear scientists. How do they reconcile the fact that they don't agree with their logic, or their that the extraction's bad, and that it's hard to reconcile that all these scientists who have studied a scientific model and specific, the geoscience or engineering or whatnot, that they all have a different opinion and that it's not warranted. And that's something people have to ask themselves. And unfortunately, once again, today, we have so many competing narratives out there. It's hard. It's a lot of work. It is. It's a ton of work. And that's what we're here to help, is to just shake a little bit, maybe annoy a few people a little bit. But in that process, maybe someone kind of thinks and goes, wait a second. Yeah, maybe we do need all these metals. And maybe if it's not an ideal solution for 3 or 4 years, but it gets the economy going, it gets people working, it gets the energy we need to help with all of these plans, whether it's solar, with battery development and AI integration and building out the grid. Isn't that something we should entertain and have that discussion rather than, oh, let's just stop and not do anything? In any event, that's my big rant for the day. We've got some interesting articles we've put out as well regarding this, and especially with it's very controversial. I think it was the Wall Street Journal put out regarding Lee Zeldin and the EPA. There'll be lots of people with opinions on that. But my overall one, although maybe it pushed things too far, it looks to unlock about $56 billion worth of investment and wealth from this. People have put some very large numbers on it, but that's what we need to do. We need to get rid of most of these regulations that are stopping industry. Because once again, they're not putting them on China and they're not putting them on India that are the main polluters. They're putting them only on Western countries. And that should tell you something as well, is that do we have a bigger crisis regarding climate change, and we need to have answers in which mining is a solution? Do we have an AI race that is arguably whoever wins that and whoever has that massive breakthrough in regards to AI? That is arguably the most important thing, because if they can get it to where the dream of it being, it's going to help create batteries, create new energy, create all these new technologies. Isn't it the argument then that we should be going full steam ahead and implementing all of that we need in order to make that happen? I think so. And I think if you really wanted your country to succeed and you wanted, your neighbors to succeed and your community and to, create wealth in your own space, you'd want that too. And I think that's a fair position to take. Tell me what your thought is. Make sure you check out our drill sheets. We've put out 2 new ones as well. We're going to chat a little bit about them on Friday. 2 interesting companies that we will get into a little bit more. And of course, make sure you check out the free articles on Substack too, and continue commenting. And if you've got a company as well that you want us to throw on the model, happy to do it. That's something we'll do more for our paid subscribers down the line after September. But if you've got ones in the meantime, I'll try to get those to you and give you our 2 cents worth. Everyone, thank you for your time. And we always enjoy the commentary back and forth. Tell me what your thoughts are on a number of these different conversations I've started. And of course, if you want to have any of the links or reminders of some of the shows and people I've talked about, happy to share that as well. We'll talk to you on Friday. Take care.